r/AskReddit. What's your most conservative opinion? For a country with the Second Amendment, gun safety should be taught in schools. I took hunter safety in high school PE class. In my state, minimum age for the course is 18 and everyone with a hunting permit has to have it. In the rural areas, kids are taught that guns are for shooting meat you eat, not people you dislike. We used to get an excused absence twice a year for deer hunting on that Friday. A hunting rifle in the back of the truck in the school parking lot was a common sight. I believe foreigners shouldn't be allowed to buy houses unless they are going to live in them. This goes both ways though. Like if foreigners shouldn't buy homes they don't live in full time here, then by principle we shouldn't buy vacation homes in other countries we only visit occasionally. Too bloody right you shouldn't. There is such a thing as being too inclusive. Probably one of the few actual conservative opinions expressed here. Most of the opinions expressed here are the result of culture war bullshit and not actually politically aligned opinions at all. The fact that the American Republican Party of the last decade has drawn its entire platform on winning the culture war by being the opposite of the buzzwords of the day does not make those stances inherently liberal or conservative. Not everyone should go to college. It's wasted on a lot of people and it just adds to their debt. Trade schools are an amazing mechanism, but the society we live in says get college educated to have a chance at a living. Many blue collar jobs as well as desk jobs like HR and coding have positions that make 6-digit income, more than I currently make as a college educated individual. On a side note, a little more biased right thinking from me here. If everyone has a bachelor degree, the value of a bachelor degree goes down tremendously. Logically, top paying jobs are going to require higher level graduate degrees just for consideration. I don't think that's a particularly conservative opinion. There is a lot of support for vocational training among liberals in lieu of traditional colleges. Germany's apprenticeship programs are often cited as well. I'm saying this as a teacher. There are 100% cases where kids can't be helped and need to be removed from the educational system. Some child's left behind act. I like it. I was going to say this. Sometimes a teacher can invest all the time and effort in the world into helping a kid succeed, and at its core the kid just doesn't care, can't be helped. I know it must be a heartbreaker and pain, but it's better to fail just one kid and strengthen the others than to try helping one kid and having everyone else be let down academically, and in the end their efforts were in vain. Language doesn't need to be all inclusive all of the time. A Spanish speaker here, the way people are pushing Latinx, or trying to work around the fact that everything has a gender when spoken about. Edit. Acceptable terms in my humble opinion would be Latin, Hispanic, Latin, or Latino even. Same connotation as dude. Is the male tense but has become gender neutral. Check with your local native Spanish speaker. There was a place in Brooklyn maybe that got mocked for signage that tried to remove the gender from items it sold. Avocados instead of avocados. Like who the hell thinks avocados are male oppression? I'm far left and live in Portland and I'm tired of how the homeless population leaves behind trash, feces, and needles. Also the heckling and the unpredictability scares me, but I can't say that here. BC everyone is very defensive when the homelessness situation is brought up. In my area, my issue is the homeless are largely SME, seriously mentally ill, and use street drugs. It's unpredictable, unsanitary and occasionally violent anarchy. I didn't always feel this way, but pre-COVID I was downtown and a homeless guy confronted me on the street and started yelling that he was going to rape and murder me if I didn't give him $1. I was with my co-worker who later told me I was very rude and demeaning towards the homeless man because I just walked away and didn't acknowledge him. I'm not sorry. I'm not going to assist or even make eye contact with someone who is yelling they are going to rape and murder me for $1. My co-worker who called me out for being rude is as much as a problem as that crazy homeless guy. My co-worker who later told me I was very rude and demeaning towards the homeless man because I just walked away and didn't acknowledge him. That's a co-worker I'd be telling to duck off. Someone threatening to rape and kill you don't deserve shit from you. You can lead a horse to a creek but you can't make it drink. Some people can be offered all the assistance they need and still not put forth efforts to better themselves. More of a fact than an opinion. It's not up to us to force someone to change, and it's not up to us to judge if they are worse or better than we'd like them to be. All we can do is give people the support they need to have the opportunity to improve on their own terms. My prov is if a horse won't drink, that's no excuse to drain the watering hole. You'd be surprised to see how many people think the mere existence of someone who deserves aid the least is a valid reason to take it away from those who need it most. I just want to be left the duck alone. Not everything I do or say has some sort of idiotic political slant. Our two-party political system is ducking pointless and stupid since it's literally nothing but, what's my opinion? Whatever the other side thinks, I'm against it. I recently commented something to the effect of not always having an agenda when commenting. Someone replied saying I was naive if I thought I didn't have a political bias. Yep, I never said I don't have a political bias. Just said that I don't always have an agenda. Pronouns. I understand she, her, he, him, they, them. But don't get me started on your pronouns like kid, herself and stuff. I just don't get it. Yeah, I understand that. There's even like ender/enderself. I'm not calling you after a fantasy Minecraft mob. LOL, this is hilarious. Is enderself also asking you not to look into their eyes? The word chest feeding makes my skin crawl. Even if you're a man that breastfeeds, why not call it what it is? When a man gets breast cancer, we don't refer to it as chest cancer. I'm in a local parenting Facebook group, liberal area, and it's a moms group, but you can't address the group as moms or ladies. It just be something gender neutral even though it's 999 cis women. Also, if you have a breastfeeding question, you will get scolded if you don't phrase the question as breastfeeding chest feeding. I'm all for inclusiveness, but if you're honestly offended by the word breastfeeding, then the internet and the real world is not the place for you. People who accidentally address the group wrong get pounced on by members who just seem to be wanting woke brownie points. It's exhausting, and while I do get some good info from it, I'm also kind of entertained by the ridiculousness of it and give my husband regular reports of the group drama. I hate this crap. Jesus Christ. Identity politics has become weaponized in ways that can be toxic and alienating. I don't mean efforts at diversity, equity, inclusivity, or against discrimination. I mean mainly in online discourse and within activist spaces and organizations. And I'll be the first to point out that conservatives and white nationalists also engage in identity politics, even if their politics are in service of historically dominant identities. Also, we need a fundamental restructuring of how we imagine public safety and criminal justice. But I believe that something like the police and even prisons will always be necessary in some form. Edit. To those saying my points aren't very conservative, maybe they aren't on the whole, but I'm a socialist, and among my fellow leftists I think these would be seen as conservative opinions. Part of why I think everyone saying defund the police were really shooting themselves in the foot. There's always going to be a need for law enforcement, and any sensible person is going to understand that to be true. So phrasing your call for reform and change in how law enforcement works in such a way that it sounds like you want to get rid of it entirely just makes you sound crazy. If they'd instead said reform the police or change law enforcement or end police corruption, a lot more people would have gotten on board with it a lot easier, and rhetoric against the movement would have been a lot harder to raise. No shoes in the house. I will never understand why people wear shoes in the house. Why TF do you want to dirty the shit out of your house because you're too lazy to bend down and take them off? Edit. A separate pair of shoes for inside makes more sense. Other edit. Since people keep wondering how shoes get dirty so much. Well, when you live in an area with a lot of precipitation, it just happens whether you like it or not. My parents actually have a sign that says leave your shoes on because they have dogs, and if you take your shoes off, 1, your socks will be covered in dog hair, no matter how frequently they vacuum, and 2, the dogs will take your shoes and either hide them or eat them. I consider myself pretty far left. However, I think most Americans are terrible with money, and buy things they can't actually afford, especially cars, and they cause a lot of their own financial problems themselves. Not to say our system is amazing. I see this the most when we pressure 16-18 years old kids, telling them they must go to college or they'll never be equipped to contribute to society. So the kid secures a $40 000 loan to go to college even though they aren't sure exactly what they want to do, and graduate with a degree that gets a job that makes them pay off a student loan for 12 years. Yup, people like to blame 18-year-old kids for listening to their parents and believing college is the right path even if you need to take out $50,000 plus in loans to do it. I worked throughout college to cover all of my living expenses, paid off interest on loans during college, paid for or found ways to obtain books for free, and even took community college classes to save on the cost per credit. I still have a $600 month payment at 33, but I'm almost done. This has hindered my ability to afford a house or wedding. My father went to Free City College and paid $50 a year for books and supported 2 kids by age 25. Some kinks deserve to be shamed. As a Latino American, I do not particularly like the term Latinx. It's not something I've ever heard used in my largely Hispanic community at home, but heard all the time from non-Hispanic people at college. I understand that the intention is inclusivity, so I do not get angry and will use the term if others are using it, but the nature of our gendered language has nothing to do with identity, it's culture, and for non-Hispanics to correct me on my use of gendered nouns is not something I particularly enjoy, and I'm not sure how to express my feelings beyond that. Cuban American here. I agree. Also, I get wanting to have a gender neutral version of Latino and Latina, but growing up we called that word Latin. There are Cuban restaurants called Latin American restaurant, and there's a musical genre called Latin music, and there's a record company over here called Sony Latin. Adding the X just makes it harder to say, especially in Spanish. Also Cuban American. My white sister-in-law tried telling me that I was Latinx and not Latino. Well, I lost my shit. If you can't handle that the Spanish language has male and female words, then that's on you. You don't get to tell me how I identify as a Latino. I think it's okay to have dating preferences. Like, I don't hate and despise men who wear dresses and paint their nails. Go ahead and express yourself, you only have one life to live. I just don't think it's sexy. I want to date a guy who's manly, smells like cologne, holds open the door for me and pays for dinner, etc. And I'm not saying I want my future partner to never cry and express vulnerability, that he has to chop wood and grow out a beard. Men are human beings who are allowed to be vulnerable and have emotions. I just like masculinity, but people have actually gotten upset at me for saying so. I said I'd divorce or end a relationship if my partner came out as a trans woman because I have no interest in dating women or feminine people. Someone on a thread got mad at me, saying I was punishing people for being their true selves. I said I wouldn't be comfortable dating a guy who cross-dresses, in a sexual or non-sexual way. Someone got mad at me for that too. That I wouldn't be a supportive partner. I'd gladly be friends with a man who cross-dresses, or support an ex-partner with exploring their gender or transitioning. I just don't feel attraction to those things. I'm a very liberal person who had a partner of 8 years come out as trans. It ended our romantic sexual relationship, and it was incredibly devastating. I'm just a boring straight female who is only attracted to men, and she was no longer a man. We tried to maintain our romantic relationship for a short time, but it didn't work out. We are, however, the best of friends and I consider her my sister. She's happy with her current partner while I'm happily single. Also, what I find important here is that the people who do the things you don't find attractive would just feel bad in a relationship with you because you clearly wouldn't find them attractive. So why would you punish them with not making them feel unattractive in the first place? King should not be at a Pride event that isn't 21 and older only. Went to Pride last summer. Kids were running around the same area as people in fetish wear. Pride is about celebrating love and family and one's identity. I don't care if you're kinky, but the basic inalienable rule of good fetish practice is to not play with non-consenting people, like the public. So to be publicly wearing fetish gear is wrong, especially when kids are at the event. I feel like having a family-oriented Pride earlier in the day, and an adults-only Pride that night is a smarter choice. OMG. Yes, it is not the same at all. I saw the same thing at the Pride celebration in my town. People dressed as puppies and being led around on leashes while on their hands and knees. It feels like this is the kind of thing to help push the homosexuals or perverts narrative. 100%. I don't even see how some of these kinks could be related to pride. No one has been able to explain to me how a 40-year-old guy walking around in just a soaked adult diaper and adult pacifier has anything to do with pride. But many people will defend that shit to the death online. Too many people online conflate their fetish with their identity and feel that they should be able to show their fetish identity to the world, and if you balk then you're not inclusive. Note, this is a traditional conservative value, not the wacky shit that the MAGA crowd spews. I think there is an enormous amount of government waste, and every government program should be reviewed annually to evaluate it for duplicity with other programs and its overall impact on improving people's lives. Oversight is good, but I feel like a comprehensive annual review would have the opposite effect you're after and would be intensely expensive. Isn't this part of the idea behind universal basic income? It's cheaper to give everyone money than employ thousands upon thousands of people to decide who gets welfare. Men who turn female are going to have an athletic advantage over those born female. Imagine 18-year-old Shaquille O'Neal decides to become a woman. We'd have a 7 feet 2 inches woman with the skeletal structure of a man. I totally agree, and I also think it genuinely isn't fair on that athlete, as well as obviously all the athletes around them. I think that the only way that a trans athlete can fairly participate is if the sport is already mixed, but biologically there isn't a fair solution. Obviously this is just my current opinion. If anyone disagrees I would love to hear what they have to say. I have no idea where everyone in this thread sits on the political spectrum, but it's cool to feel a sense of unity in these convos. It would be interesting to ask conservative types what their most liberal opinion is. I suspect we all have more in common than we think. Edit. I can see the post was removed. That's really too bad. I think marijuana should be legal and that we should, as a society, do more to protect nature and switch to renewable energy. Fairly conservative individual here. And I couldn't agree more. The fact that people go to federal prison for a plant that has far fewer health detriments than alcohol and prescription medications is mind-boggling to me. Family is the fabric of society. Without strong familial support networks, people are more vulnerable, which makes them more susceptible to manipulation, bribery, criminality, etc. When families break down, society follows. The problem is what people define as family. My family of origin is rotten to the core. I will never go back. I have my own family. They are what's important to me. Also, families come in all different varieties. Family are those who would bleed for you, not those you share blood with. Sorts by controversial. Men, 80% of them are abortion. I saw an article a while back from 538 on what Americans really think about abortion, and the answer was basically nobody's really sure. It's complicated, but we really would just rather not talk about it. Thought that was interesting. Your triggers are your responsibility. It isn't the world's obligation to tiptoe around you. For strangers, absolutely. There's something that happened on TikTok that still bothers me. On TikTok, there's a community of bakers, and other people in the self-harm community were telling the bakers to trigger warn their content because the act of slicing certain doughs for certain recipes looks like what happens when you go deep. I have a history of self-harm, so I'm able to make that connection, and I avoid bread stuff for that reason. But normal people aren't gonna know that, so it's not on them to warn. It's on you to avoid. Typically I avoid TikTok for this exact BS, but my baker friend wanted my input. But there are so many unhealthy communities on TikTok. I hate it. Ninja edit BC typo. High schools push 4-year colleges too much. The school system should also push trade schools as much as 4-year colleges. There is a shortage of workers in trade fields, and I honestly believe it's because of how much high schools push 4-year degrees over trade schools. Obese people are not healthy, and it's certainly not a lifestyle someone should be applauded for living. I'm a big dude and I agree. Don't treat overweight people like shit, but don't celebrate them and try to claim it's healthy. It's not. I wish more people agreed on this middle ground. Fat people deserve respect the same as anyone else, but I'm not gonna sit here and act like being fat is a good thing. I'm fine with voter IDs. It's weird we don't check IDs sometimes. You don't need it to vote. Canadian here, and I think I must be missing something. Anyone can just show up. Edit. Thanks to everyone taking the time to respond. It makes more sense now that I understand that people don't have access to free ID. I'm in BC and there is a charge for a driver's license, but you can get a BC service card that can be used as photo ID for no charge. Just because you're offended, it does not mean careers need to be ended or a person cancelled. Be offended and ducking, move on. Edit. This took on a life of its own overnight and I'm loving reading the different takes on what I said. I even feel a little educated at the end of it. And stop being offended on behalf of other people. Be offended or don't be offended. I'm a very left-leaning person, but lately I've been pretty sympathetic to the idea that some social issues are better solved with culture than law. Then Governor Jerry Brown in CA rejected a law that would fine parents $25 for not making their kids wear a helmet while skiing or snowboarding. I've never forget what he wrote when rejecting it. Not every human problem deserves a law. We need to do a better job of incentivizing families and single income households or we're going to be proper ducked in about 25 years. Firearm deaths can be reduced through proper training and education, not necessarily through more restrictions. Sex positivity has gone too far. I don't want to hear anything about anyone's sex life. What happens in the bedroom should stay in the bedroom. Edit. For the people arguing that it's a normal biological function, so is shitting. We don't talk about that in casual conversation, so why are we talking about deep throating and doggy style in casual conversation? Agreed. I get tired from being reminded about sex every second of my life with all the innuendo jokes, advertising, movies and people assuming that I want to discuss these sort of topics. I also get tired of people who assume that I constantly want it and can't control myself because I'm a guy. I don't like Tinder culture. I want deep, meaningful connections. There are lots of things that are better and more important than sex. I'm on board with the OG conservative notion that there is an immense amount of good in our current system that we should be careful not to destroy. I just think there is also room for improvement, so we should also be honest about things that should change. This is literally what conservative is supposed to refer to, the idea that socio-political change should be done cautiously and incrementally, not by throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I don't hate guns. I feel education is more important than restrictions. People are always going to break the rules, but teach people how a gun actually works and hopefully incidents of accidental injuries and death will be reduced. What's your most conservative opinion? I want money. I like money. I don't like spending money. Money. Our federal government is unnecessarily humongous and bloated and could likely be significantly restructured. We just can't agree on how to do it, so the lazy GOP ideology is that it's all bad and should be destroyed, which I don't agree with. At its core, true conservatism should mean smart governance, as in a scalpel, versus eliminating all government, a sledgehammer. Most forms of sex work are not empowering for women and can be damaging for people psychologically and sometimes physically. Children don't belong on social media. I am pretty far left, and I actually like having a strong military. I agree. However, I think that lowering our military spending doesn't have to be correlated with a weaker military. Perhaps directing the money spent on our military more efficiently and effectively would work to ease people on both sides of the political spectrum. Wow, this thread is surprisingly liberal. Here I go then. Not everyone is fit to be a parent. While the foster care system is awful as it is, if it wasn't, then a lot of children would be better off taken to a new environment, or just not born. Access to contraceptive methods for everyone. Not every culture can be entirely integrated, especially if they are not willing to be. If you create a multicultural environment, there will be a lot of friction coming from different customs. Some of those won't be solvable. Most will be. A lot of cultural stereotypes are rooted in truth. Open bracket. I live in a very multicultural environment. I love learning about other people's culture and I have friends from all over the world, but there are a lot of customs I refuse to accept in my close proximity. I like my European values a lot, thank you. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.